This week's episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast is proudly brought to you by Quack Rack. Quack Rack is premium decoy and gear hauling solutions for your UTV or boat. 100% American-made front racks, roofs, roof baskets, and rear racks. You can get an inside look by checking out episode 75 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. You can also follow Quack Rack on Facebook and Instagram, and by checking out the hashtag HaulMoreShootMore. Visit quackrack.com today. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 112. This week on the show, we wrap up our trip to Kansas as we're joined with Ben Webster, Big Kansas Outdoors. All right, welcome to the 112th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Palm, and we are your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. Check us out at hpoutdoors.com. You can head over to social media, find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can catch our show anywhere that quality podcast content can be found: iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, all the good ones. You can find our show. If you're new to the show, certainly head out to your favorite podcast catcher. Leave us a rating and review. Help like-minded hunters like you find our program. Another way you can connect with our listener base is to head over to Facebook and join our listeners group. In there, you can also chat with my co-host, Dan Harushka. Dan, what is up?
It's illegal to hunt whales in Kansas.
Legal to hunt whales in Kansas.
Illegal,
right. Is it legal to hunt whales like other places?
Well, I don't know.
I was going to say, is that is it legal?
Well, it's in the middle of the country and no coastline, and there's actually a law that you can't hunt whales there, which I don't think there's even any there to hunt. But also, the first Pizza Hut store opened in Wichita, so I'm looking up really cool stats on Kansas just because I'm still jazzed about being out there, and that's where that little bit of info came from.
Right on. Well, good to know. And if you got a whale hunt planned for this weekend out there, might want to call it off. So this week we are joined by get yourself together. All right. This week we're joined by Ben Webster, Big Kansas Outdoors. We're going to break down our weekend out there, go through the hunts that we were on, talk a little bit about tactics and the approach to that, and pick Ben's brain a little bit about how he makes decisions that he does when we're approaching hunts and things like that. So go a little deep dive on those and give you guys some details that hopefully help you in your hunts coming up. Before we do that, I want to take a minute just to thank a few supporters of this show. To start it off, White Rock Decoys. You got decoy envy? Don't. When you figure out that you don't need a giant trailer full of heavy, expensive full-body decoys to compete with the big boys, you just need their numbers. You can build your spread bigger, quicker, and lighter without sacrificing on quality gear. You can do it all out of the back of your truck. Everything starts with a click, and you're ready to roll with White Rock. White Rock Decoys offer premium engineered decoy systems for the new generation of mobile waterfowl hunters. Check them out at whiterockdecoys.com. Use the discount code HPOutdoors. Save yourself 10%. Also, Lucky Duck. About the only creature that they can't deceive is you. Lucky Duck's more than a brand. It's a lifestyle built around the subtle art of critter deception. So while you're focused on the business end of your shotgun or rifle, know that they're completely focused on what matters most, you. So whether you're in a duck blind, dove field, on a predator stand, or chasing turkeys, they're confident that their products will help you succeed. Check out their full lineup at luckyduck.com. Keep up with the latest news following them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. 737 Duck and Goose Calls. Original design, select grade components, superior sound, and unparalleled service. 737 takes exceptional pride in producing the finest quality, best built premium calls in the market today. They're made in America and offered only direct to consumers through their website. Shipping in the U.S. is always free, and international orders are also accepted online. 20-day money-back guarantee and a lifetime warranty accompany every call purchased. 737 Duck Calls lead the flock. Gunner Kennels, engineered for your dog and designed for travel and built for your peace of mind. The G1 kennel has set a new industry standard and put Gunner kennels in a category all its own. Gunner was started to protect your pet, and it continues to be at the center of everything that they do. They're dedicated to building the best and safest pet travel crate market on the market. Man's best friend deserves man's best kennel. Check out their G1 series of kennels and accessories at gunnerkennels.com. OnX Hunt. OnX allows you to confidently navigate public and private land boundaries across the country. The Hunt app turns your smartphone into a fully functioning GPS with more than 450 countrywide maps to give clear private and public land boundaries, trails, hunting specific data, and more. Listeners can receive 20% off the Hunt app, the premium or elite membership when they use the discount code HPOWDoors at onxmaps.com. Also, thank you to Camp Chef, Black Rifle Coffee Company, and Big Al Silhouette Decoys. Please support the companies that support the show. We greatly appreciate that. And to make it easier for you to do so, head over to the discounts page on hpoutdoors.com. Find out how you can save 10% off with Dunn Sporting Goods, 15% off with Black Rifle Coffee Company, 10% off with White Rock, 15% off with 737 Duck Calls, 15% off with Alpha Dog Nutrition, 10% off with Gunner Kennels, 10% off with Ridge Wallet, and 20% off on X Hunt. So take advantage of those discounts while you can. All right, Dan. So looking back on the hunt out in Kansas, man, I can confidently say that it exceeded my expectations, and I just cannot wait to get back and do it again.
Yeah, there's some sites that you see on TV, and then it's totally different when you're actually doing it in person. One for me, I went out kind of like on our Eastern Shore trips, didn't expect to call too much, but ended up, dabbling a little bit. Well, we called quite a bit in Kansas, and when there's that many lessers, they're like, yeah, if you want to get on it, get on it. So, we just started hammering away, and it did seem to be, they were more responsive to it. So at one point, we had, I don't know how many hundreds of geese above us, and some are going left to right, and then the next level above them are going right to left. And it's like creating this, little weird like 3D effect, and then you're blowing on a call so hard, like I was getting dizzy, and I'm like, Stamp Pots, give me a second here.
Yeah, you did drop that.
You did. I did. Like, I just need to, I literally had to stop calling and close my eyes for a minute just to, get my feet back on the ground, because I was like, I've never seen anything like this. And
like, I need a minute over here. I'm like, whoa, Stamp Pots, like get it together.
Stamp Pots. Yeah, but no, what a great time. And, you see what Ben does in his operation, and that dude has it together, and it's just really, really cool to finally go out, meet him, be a part of the whole show, and it was just, can't say enough about it.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about hunting with guides is hearing them work the call, and just seeing their cadences, seeing how they call at ducks, when they call, how aggressive, their techniques, things like that. And on that last hunt, the last day of our hunt, there was Ben and his other guy, Braden, calling, and we had big knots of ducks working us, and there was wind and things. And, I had, we all had our calls, but we weren't really calling too much. And then, cause you don't want to like step on anybody's toes or whatever. And I remember Ben's just like, blind full of duck hunters and none of y'all got duck calls. And we're like, all right. So, start calling, that last day. That was fun because I could actually kind of work off of what they were doing and, helping me kind of learn some new things and, read ducks and different cadences and stuff. So, there are a lot, I always walk away from hunting with the guides having learned so much. And, it was just a good trip from that perspective. And we killed a bunch of birds. And
I broke my duck call. Well, I creased
you did
the reed. Oh, awful.
Yeah. So you didn't do any duck calling.
Anyway,
but
not on last day.
Correct. But I shouldered the load for you. So what else has been going on? You're getting snowed on back home now?
Getting snowed on. And, so I missed a couple days of my antibiotic when we were out there for this sinus infection, and I was feeling really good. And I was like, you know what? I should finish it out just because that's what you're supposed to do. So I did it, and now I feel like absolute crap again.
I was gonna say, you don't sound very good.
And I was like, no, I don't feel good. Everything's back and like just jammed in my head. I feel like it stuffed everything up. So I think I'm just going to stop taking it and hopefully feel better tomorrow.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Well, yeah. Anyway, so what do you think? You want to go ahead and get into this, or you got something else you want to?
No, I think roll that beautiful bean footage.
I don't know what that means, but we'll go ahead and welcome Ben Webster to the show. All right, this week we are excited to welcome our buddy back to the show. He's probably about sick of us by this point, Dan, having to deal with us for a couple days in the blind. But joining us on the show is Ben Webster, Big Kansas Outdoors. Ben, what's up, man?
What's going on, guys?
Are you tired of us yet? Are you ready to turn the page on the HP boys? We've been kind of bugging you a lot lately, having to entertain us in the blind and everything, and now on the podcast, I know Dan can be a lot to handle, so I understand you can be honest with us.
No, I'm not tired of you guys. I'm just tired in general. Wore down, ready for Christmas break, man.
No, I hear that. That's actually an interesting point that you make, because we were out there for, I think we hunted 3 days, Dan, or something like that. We got in town like Thursday around lunchtime, and we hunted Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. And we're up early every day. You're staying up late, cutting up and stuff. And we said it. I can't tell you how many times while we were out there. It's like, man, these guys, they got to be running ragged. Doing this, 6-7 days a week or whatever. When you're not hunting, you're scouting and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely developed an appreciation for what you guys are doing to to make the magic happen for all these different groups that come out, and just the amount of effort I could see how that would wear you down and how that can run you thin from time to time.
Definitely. It's a lot more work than people think. I mean, everybody thinks the guide life is just the best life ever. You get to hunt every single day, but they don't see all the behind the scenes work. Luckily, I have, in my opinion, one of the best crews in the nation right now. I think we could compete with the best of them for sure, and they all have a great work ethic, and we just work really well as a team. So that helps immensely when everybody's pulling their own weight.
Yeah, I think it showed, when you're talking not only our crew that, you kind of took care of us and hunted with us each day, but, we check in with you and be like, how's the other crew in camp doing? And, they're limited out and, getting all their birds. So it's not just a couple fields you guys have, you guys are all over the place all the time. And it's funny because, I talked to Josh a couple times about it, but I'm like, it's so crazy that, that scouting report the day before matters so much to what you guys are doing the following day. And, not just for one crew, but you have to have enough birds for 2 or 3 crews going. So, that's a lot of work, a lot of miles, and you guys definitely have it down pat out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's also not, the scouting the night before helps, but you also, especially geese, you really want to get a pattern on the birds. Just because you saw them in there that night doesn't mean that's where they really wanted to be. They could have been bumped before you knew it. We typically try and let them feed twice, either a morning feed and an evening feed, or an evening feed and a morning feed before we hunt them, just to make sure that they're that comfortable. And honestly, the longer you can let them feed in there, the better, as far as, they feel confident and comfortable in that field, and that'll help your success that much more.
Yeah, it's a ton of work and a ton of effort, and it definitely didn't go unnoticed by our crew when we were out there. And one of the things we wanted to do on this episode of the show is kind of go in depth on our experience a little bit and sort of relive the hunts and kind of paint a picture a little bit for our listeners as to kind of what the scenario was, and just talk a little bit about some of those strategies that, you guys are using, that I can tell you things that, you guys think about and kind of just sort of naturally react to and conduct, the hunt are things that like don't cross a lot of people's minds. And we'll get into some of these things that, you know, that we heard you say or that we saw you do that we're like, man, you know, like I didn't even think about that. And, you know, this is just something that you routinely think about. So we want to deep dive into all of that stuff a little bit. But before we get too far down that road, I did want to just circle to a topic that has been kind of, gotten a little bit of attention since we've come out of the hunt. And it has to do with, your dog Otis and some of the pictures that were posted of him on social media and stuff, and the rec specs that he wears. And I have to be honest with you, when I first saw them, I didn't realize I've seen them in like military dogs and things like that. But I really hadn't seen them in a field application like this. So I was curious to see how the dog would do, because like my dog, if you put anything on the dog, like, you know, whether it's on his feet or on his, you know, like a sweater or something, like all he wants to do is just roll around on the ground and like paw his face or whatever until it like goes away. But you know, you had these things on Otis and he was just like, it was just part of his deal. You know, he didn't even hesitate. So obviously he'd been accustomed to him and stuff like that, but talk to us a little bit about sort of how you got, you know, why you started having Otis wear those while he hunts, and kind of a little bit of the backstory on those photos that people were seeing out there.
Yeah. So anybody that knows Otis knows he's a kind of a freak of nature. Extremely hard charging dog, almost too much go, but you know, he's pretty fun to watch. But the problem is he really didn't slow down for anything. So his first eye injury was kind of a weird deal. It wasn't actually his eye; it was right next to his eye. He got a foxtail seed under his skin, and it got infected, swelled up. His eye swelled shut. He actually didn't even open his jaw. And took him in, got antibiotics, everything was fine. Went to the trainer 4 months later, it swelled up even worse. They actually had to make an incision, push all the infection out, and, you know, golf ball size steel of flesh, you know, fell out and died where the foxtail seed was. And luckily he's only got a little 1-inch, you know, scar on the side of his head. But so that happened. And then just doing training, I can't remember if it was training or hunting the second time. His eye was just discharging a bunch of mucus, and he was kind of, you know, that third eyelid was up halfway, and so we took him in, and he had a abrasion on his cornea. So after that happened, I started looking into stuff, and I'd seen rec specs, and I was looking into them. I thought it'd be a great idea to, you know, get some for him just because of the type of dog he is and what we're doing. And I, you know, got in contact with rec spec, just going to ask them a bunch of questions, sizes, and that kind of stuff, and I didn't end up doing it. And then this past spring, we went to train, and I left Otis. The pond's kind of sunk down in, and it's, you know, surrounded by trees. So part of my training is, you know, somewhat disciplined. So I make him sit by the truck. I go down and get everything set up, and I just call his name, and he, you know, runs to me when we start training. Well, he ran straight through a fallen tree, but this time he didn't go through it. It actually, you know, stick stuck right in his eyeball. He rolled, landed on the ground, opened his eyelid up, and he actually had bark like stuck in his cornea, and it was a pretty bad ordeal. So, you know, after that, I bought the goggles. I wish I would have bought them a second time, because it would save me, you know, quite a bit of that money. You know, just from bills from going to the vet, but luckily he made a full recovery with his eye and everything. So, I love him. I don't think he minds them, because he's 100% about training, about retrieving. So what I did is I made him wear him around the house a little bit, and he was, you know, kind of pulling on him, trying to take him off. And I was like, you know what? Screw this. You know, we went and trained, and I put him on before we trained, and he didn't even act like they were there. He's just selling thralls and let's train and let's go retrieve, you know. And ever since then, now when I get him out, he'll come right to me, like, okay, let's go. Like, I don't want to wear them, but I know what we're going to do if we're wearing them. It really doesn't affect him until after the hunt, you know, when everything's winding down and we're kind of picking stuff up. I'll see him. He'll like come over to me and try and rub him off his face, and I just take him off at that point. But I'm actually really impressed with them. They don't really fog up. They're not quite scratch resistant, but I've been very impressed with how well they've held up. And I've seen some bad reviews that, oh, the lens is scratched, but what people don't realize, if something is scratching that hard plastic, that lens, what could that potentially be doing to your dog's eyes?
Right.
You know, I mean, you really don't think about it until you can visually start seeing scratches on the lenses. Like, he's running through some, you know, just think about it, corn stalks, milo stalks, and that's not even talking about the millet seed and the milo seed, or, you know, all those different seeds that those ducks are feeding on it. I mean, you look at your dog's eyelid, you hunt millet, it'll be full of it, full of millet seed. So I started wearing them. I mean, if we hunt like an open wheat field, you know, not necessary. You know, there's not really anything you're going to be running to. Any other situation other than that, he pretty much wears them every time now, unless I just forget, which is my fault. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was the last hunt, you know, we took the 4-wheeler out and you got those out and he pretty much came over and put his paws up on the 4-wheeler and, all right, you know, Dad, come on, put them on and let's get after it. But, you know, another thing that I didn't realize out there, and this is even after playing baseball out there 2 summers, but the farmland out there is pretty sandy, right? So, I mean, even to keep the sand and all that out of your eyes too when you're going full force and the wind mixed in with it. So, I mean, it really has to be comfortable for the dog. And one thing that I was kind of impressed with was how well he did in the water with it. You know, you would think that it would, I guess it just kind of sheds it really well. But, I mean, he's splashing through the water, swimming, whatever, and it just really did not affect him whatsoever to have those on.
Yeah, and that's part of the design on them is all the way around. You know, the rim of the goggles is actually ventilation, so they actually stick off your dog's face about, I'd say, like a half inch, and all the way around it's all ventilation. That way, if any water gets in, it just drains right through. It can breathe. That's why they don't fog. Honestly, it's a really good product that I just started using this year, and you know, I'm very impressed with it. When I first saw them, I'm like, yeah, people are, you know, no one's really using them for safety. You know, they just look cool. I mean, they do. Everybody that saw those pictures that Marshall took, and then, you know, the picture that Braden took, I mean, looks pretty cool on your dog. And so that obviously helps for them as far as selling them. But, you know, a lot of people don't want to buy something that looks goofy. I mean, that's just same with us. I mean, you don't want to wear goofy safety glasses. So, yeah, I mean, just a great product, and hopefully it saves me, you know, some vet trips. And I feel really fortunate when he wasn't wearing them that he didn't lose an eye that day, because, I mean, that tree stopped him dead in his tracks, and it was a really bad ordeal. So I wish he would have been wearing them, but, you know, it is what it is. So
I remember it must have been kind of in the summer, because I remember talking to you that day, and I'm thinking it was right around when we were planning on, you know, coming out there. But you're like, man, my dog ran into a tree today. And I'm like, all right. And you're like, no, like it went into his eye and like stopped him. Like he was running full bore. And you're like, Dan, you don't understand. This dog goes like 100 miles an hour, and this thing stopped him in his tracks, and that stick went into his eye. And then I was like, oh man, you're like, I got to go. I have to go deal with this. And, you know, it was everything like taking care of a kid, and, you know, any small insurance policy. And I think, what'd you say? They're like $60-$70 maybe?
The goggles?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're, I think they're $60. So
$60.
He's a size large. They got sizes to fit. I mean, even tiny dogs up to, you know, big dogs. So I'm not sure. I'm assuming the cost is different for the, you know, the size of the goggles, but that I'm not 100% positive on.
And the thing, you know, another thing too, I mean, for him going as fast as he does, those things are on there. And I didn't quite get to see, you know, how you attach it, but they do not move. Like they're on his head, and they're, you know, they do not flop around. They're really sturdy looking product.
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of struck me. I was surprised that, like, you know, as much as they run around and bounce around and everything, like, it didn't look like it moved on his face at all. I mean, it seemed like it, you know, that's not a problem, because I feel like, you know, if someone's probably worried, like, okay, my dog hits the water hard one time and, jolt, they jar off his head, and next thing you know, they're laying at the bottom of the marsh and they're gone. There goes $60 or whatever.
Yep. So they're elastic underneath the jaw. That way they have 100% mobility underneath their jaw, and then from the top, they go behind their ears and buckle, and that's actually adjustable as well. You can tighten it down as much as you want. So, I mean, they really don't move at all. Yeah. Even when he's trying to, even at the end of the hunt, like I said, he tries to sometimes pick them off, which I'm sure, after a little bit, it starts to aggravate him. He ain't getting them off, man. So they definitely stay on there.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. And through you and your relationship with RecSpecs, we were able to get a discount code with them, which is super exciting. So now you can use the discount code HP Outdoors, capital HPO, and you can save 15% off pair of RecSpecs. So if you're interested, or, I mean, honestly, if you have a dog that is out there working hard, eye injuries can happen so easily. And I think honestly, I do believe it's something that's overlooked. And I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I never really had an appreciation for it till I just kind of started looking at this a little closer as we were leading up to this. And I was like, man, I think this is more common than what people probably realize. And I definitely think it's potentially more expensive than what most people realize, as I'm sure you can attest to, Ben. So, it's something worth considering. Hopefully, saving 15% off will make it even more, something that you're willing to give a shot. And, so go ahead over there to RecSpecs, check them out. Use discount code HP Outdoors, save 15%, and maybe save yourself some vet bills in the process. So,
as we're talking about that, so I actually worked with a guy that had, I don't even know what kind of dog it was, but it used to ride on the front of his motorcycle, and it had a pair of these RecSpecs that he would always wear. Literally, he'd stand on a gas tank while my buddy was driving it. But if you think about all the people that are out, and say you're taking your dog training, or you're going fishing or whatever, and your dog's in the back of the truck or in the back seat and just has its head out. I was reading somewhere, the effect that wind has on her eyes and her eyesight anyways, just driving around at whatever, 50 miles an hour, that, you can start messing with your dog's eyesight just from doing that. So, $60, take 15% off with a discount code and protect your dog's eyes. It's, as I think, as we get older, Josh, it seems like we're much more cautious about, preserving our health, I guess you could say, whether it be eyes or ears. And I think it's something that we should do for our dogs too, especially, if they are older or younger, whatever, you want to take care of them anyways. So check them out.
Yeah, totally agree. So cool. Let's talk a little bit about some of the hunts that we went on out there. And, I got to be honest with you, Ben, when we were packing up our crap to come out there, all I'm seeing on social media is Blizzard Town out here in Kansas. And I'm hitting Dan up and I'm like, man, we better cowboy up. This weather is looking nasty out there right now. And we show up and it's 60 degrees. I'm in a t-shirt, and I was like, all right, we'll see what happens. So I think it was really interesting to me to see how it was going to play out with such a dramatic weather swing over such a condensed period of time. And, needless to say, we got there the first night and you're like, hey, head to this location, 5:45 the flight's on, or 4:45 or whatever time it was. And sure enough, we go there, we see more birds than I'll see in the entire rest of my season in one night. So needless to say, we were fired up, right? And, we get out on the first morning with you and we're hunting flooded beans. And I think, the conditions were tough in the sense that we had, clouds, no wind. But one of the things that I was concerned about, just generally speaking, and I think this is probably a concern that a lot of people share, but it was our concealment. We had 3 A-frame blinds set up, 2 guides, 2 dogs, bunch of guys inside. We're got podcast equipment everywhere. We got camera guys. We got a lot going on in the field. How do you go about ensuring that you can hide, that much in the field? And, which, I honestly, I don't think our hide had any had any, a negative impact on us that day at all. And we did kill birds. That's not where I'm going with this. What I'm saying is, how do you confidently say like, okay, I'm going to put 10 guys in these blinds and feel good and confident that you got them brushed in enough? And kind of what is your typical strategies to make sure you can accomplish that?
I mean, obviously you got to scout and, find out the best scenario. But definitely with ducks, I think you can get away with a little bit more as far as your hide, as far as like being a bush basically is kind of what we did. But one thing I've learned over the years using A-frames is actually the longer the blind, the better. Just because that's more natural. Like a little, 10-foot blind out there, or an 8-foot is what an A-frame is, right? Or 10-foot, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Just looks like a little tiny brush, but you throw 3 or 4 of them together, then you're starting to look like a little bush row. And something that, we started to do was to try and make it not look such like a rectangle. I think the birds are really starting to catch on to the A-frames or the upright blinds. So, I mean, you really have to do your best to try and make it, look more of a, not a square shape anymore.
Yeah.
And obviously there's certain situations for, every type of hide. We couldn't do layouts. I mean, you can't hide with standing beams. I'm not going to take down a farmer's beams to hide my blinds, so,
right.
I mean, that was really our only option.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because like we were, the property that we were on had like an old kind of fence row behind us and had some cedar trees along there. And ultimately, cedars is what was one of the main, things we use to brush the blinds. And, we use cedars a lot out our way, because, they're easy to find and, they do a really nice job of what you were saying as far as hiding those hard edges of the blinds, right? Like just trying to make sure you can get those to kind of eliminate that boxy look. And I think,
Yep.
I think it's, was said best by, was it Van de Kamp's wife that said when she got a picture of us, she's like, y'all look like you're just dressed up like bushes or something along that. I'm butchering that, but, it's like, yeah, that's kind of exactly what we were going for there. Right.
You did say that. Let me ask you, Ben, do you have a lot of people that show up and refuse to help brush blinds?
Yes and no. It just depends. Lately, what we started doing this year is we just set the whole entire spread, do the hide, and guys show up and hunt, and then, majority of the people help tear down. The reason we started doing that is just because all my guys are kind of perfectionists, so we want it done a certain way. And it makes it a little easier. That way you can actually work and not have to tell somebody what to do. Hey, we need to do this. And you don't ever have to go back and, fix something. Obviously, there are groups that want to be a part of the hunt, or want to be a part of the setup because they want to learn. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, we don't have a problem with that either. But, if you're paying us, I feel like, you should get a sleep in. You show up, we'll have everything ready for you for the most part. There may be a little bit left to do, and if the guys want to jump in and help, they can jump in and help. But as far as like just completely deny it, it's not very typical. I mean, if we're running behind, they know it's got to be done, or we're not going to kill birds. But there are those people out there like that.
So let me ask you, I'm sitting there the first morning and I felt like I was picking your brain the entire time, but I'm like, why do you have your spinners over here? Do you feel like, that's for lining birds up better? And, you come right at me with a few things. Well, everyone's right-handed. It's easier to shoot that way. I'm looking, they should be coming from this angle. And I mean, you have it figured out, I mean, you have a lot of things that go through your mind, probably that you don't even think about anymore. You know what I mean? Like, even like the shot angle, going like that. So if you can dumb it down a little bit, but what are some of your main concerns when you see people for the first time show up, and start looking to get in your blind?
Number one, safety, obviously. And then you just got to do your normal check throughs, talk about safety, and then, show them where their lanes are, show them where not to shoot. You got to give them what they can and cannot do, and you got to enforce it. And then, you just got to make sure everyone's keeping their heads down, not moving around. Just everything that, if you were going to take your kids out, that's what you're going to teach them. Same exact thing with clients. Just because I call it dumbing it down, I'm not saying any of my clients are dumb, but I don't know. So I got to go back to square one, run through everything with them just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, even if if they're 70 years old and have hunted for 40 or 50 years. You still got to run through it because you never know, it could be the first hunt. So safety is our main concern. I honestly, as long as everybody goes home safe, I don't care if we shoot a duck. I want everybody to kill their ducks, but my priority is getting all my guys home safe and all my clients home safe.
He even did that, he knows us through the show. We've talked to him a bunch, and, he knows that we have an idea what the heck we're doing. But I even appreciated it, day one, right before we get started. He's like, all right, guys, here's the deal. And just gave us the readout. And it's it's cool because, it just kind of, sets the ground rules for everybody so that you understand, in the event the dog's in a situation or somebody needs to run out there or whatever, the first time he's telling you to do something or giving a command to the group is not the first time you're hearing it. He's saying hey, if the dog's out here and there's a cripple and we're out here, whatever, I tell you to do this, whatever. If birds are working us and, they're having a hard, we're having a hard time getting them to finish, I might tell you to pull your blind in or whatever. And what that means, just to hear that, is helpful. And I think that that's something that probably everybody could do on every hunt, even if it's the dude you hunt with every single weekend. It could just be hey, remember, if they're circling us and they're not finishing, let's try this or, whatever it is. So it's just always a good review. And I think it's something that is definitely helpful and can help people stay safe.
Yeah. And that was different even from the A-frames to the layout blinds. Cause when we got into layout blinds, it was right away when I say guns up, you put those guns straight up in the air, your safety's on. And if we're out there walking or if the dogs are out there, we're not going to have accidental discharge and end up getting someone shot or one of the dogs shot. So, it was a good refresher and just a good reminder, and definitely I think it's the best thing to do on your end to lay those ground rules, no matter how experienced the person is or inexperienced it is. So, that was all really cool things to see on our end.
So I have a question for you, so I've got two questions and I don't want to forget them, but I'm going to ask the first one here. Well, you've probably seen this a million times on social media. We get it all the time. People want to know, how many decoys do I need? How do I set up? People spend a lot of time dwelling on these things. And what I thought was interesting is a lot of times people will get the guidance, if you're seeing groups of this, put out bigger groups. If you're seeing smaller groups, put out smaller groups, whatever. That makes sense. But we're hunting places where, you're expecting upwards of 1,000, 2,000 ducks to be hitting these spots. And there wasn't a ton of decoys set that first morning. I'm curious as to what your philosophy is on that, as far as, you're not trying to replicate 1,000 ducks being on the water. So kind of what's your your strategy when you decide how many ducks you want to throw out and kind of how you're going to set it up?
It really depends on, what your shot distance is going to be, but also, how many birds are in the water and is that where they want to be? If you're where they want to be, you really aren't going to have to run that many decoys. If you're trying to run traffic or trying to pull ducks over somewhere else, then you're going to want, you always want to run more. That's just how I look at it. And then obviously your lucky ducks, your motives, whatever you're using are going to help pull those ducks as well. But, then we didn't use a jerk cord because we had wind for the most part. I wish we would have had one that morning, but me and Adam Peeler from Lifetime both forgot our Lifetime jerk rig, so that was a big time mess up, but we still killed dudes. We had a great time regardless. We did. I think, in my opinion, the best thing to kill ducks on water is a jerk rig. That is the number one killer of ducks in the country, hands down. If you don't have a jerk rig, get one. They're probably the best tool for a duck hunter. Anytime there's, stale water. As far as geese, it depends on what you're hunting. If you're hunting big geese, if you're hunting little geese, big geese, you're not going to need that many, depending on the situation. If you're where they want to be, you could probably only run 3 or 4 dozen. But if you're trying to run traffic on them like they do, in some of the big cities and pits, I mean, they're running Mondo spread. So it's all situational based, and you're going to learn by listening to others and hunting with better hunters than yourself. I learn something every single year. So that's the main thing, is just get out there and try new things.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to replicate a 15,000 bird lesser feed with decoys, even though I think we did put out like 100 dozen or whatever. But let me ask you that, because I don't snow hunt. That was, the first snows I've killed. But when you have your lesser snows and specs all coming in, do you have any strategy on your decoy spread with those? Because I think we kind of had snows on both sides, and then the specs and the lessers mixed in. So is there a rhyme or reason to that, or sometimes are they all segregated? How do you roll there?
Typically we put the snows at the top of the spread because they're more aggressive feeders. So they're always going to jump to the front because they're greedy. They think that's where the food is, so they want to be the first person there. Lessers and specs typically, especially the little Canadas, the lessers are going to land in the middle, right where they feel safe, and then they'll start fanning out from the middle. So we always put the snows at the top of the spread, with the darks, on the downwind side, and we typically, for the most part, depending on how our hide is, we'll try and hide right on that salt and pepper line for the most part, because we're usually chasing the darks and the specks and the ducks rather than the snows. But, if the snows do it, then by all means, we're going to kill them too.
I got to tell you, Dan jumped us ahead here to our second hunt, and this was a really wild experience because we finished up our hunt on Thursday or on Friday, and that night a weather storm came in that was just wild. I mean, I walked outside with Dan and I saw lightning, and I'm like, what in the world? And I mean, it rained and wind came in and it lightning, and then it thunderstormed like all night long. And it continued to rain hard, like through probably about 9 a.m. the next morning while we were hunting. So, we're out there in just a complete mud hole, like just a really, just a crazy situation. Marshall's cameras are like getting just completely rained on. And that was another challenge. I mean, like our gear was like just, tested, right? I mean, I looked at the shot in the action of my shotgun after a volley, and I mean, I'm not sure, there might have been more sand in there than anything. Like it was just really wild. And, I know you guys are, you go regardless of conditions, if you've got clients and stuff, you're getting out there for the most part. And just when we were setting up, I mean, that's the one thing that like I took away was like, we didn't set a single full body, we set silhouettes and socks. And I think a lot of guys have concerns over, setting that type of decoy spread vice, I need a full body spread or whatever. Talk about like how did you come to, did it take any time for you to get confident in using that style of decoy vice full body? Because obviously as a guide, the time and the effort and all of that is worth its weight in gold. Setting up, 75 or 85 dozen decoys, whatever we set that morning, doing that in full bodies would be brutal. But, just talk about like how you came to gain confidence in that type of spread. And, was there a learning curve there that you had to kind of go through, and sort of what tips would you offer to guys that want to run a lightweight spread like that to be able to increase their numbers in the field?
Yeah, for like the past 8-9 years, I was always running full bodies, and I still have my full body spread, and I love to use it. But if I can't drive in the field, it's going to take forever to get my 40 dozen full bodies in the field with a quad and a sled. And so we, started using dive-on silhouettes and socks, and we have a pretty nice mix of silhouettes and socks, which I recommend. That way, if your birds get used to that 2D look, you can go 3D with the socks and blend those in as well. And the really nice thing is what turned me on to them is just sheer numbers of how many you can actually put out compared to like a full body spread. I mean, if we'd put out as many full bodies, we would have had to start at like midnight, to get that whole spread out. And the cost alone would have been just, absurd. So, there was a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of, you're going to learn what not to do. And then there's, a few tricks that I'm not necessarily going to give out to some people, but to help us kill. But it's all based on a learning curve. And like I said before, you always need to strive to hunt with somebody better than you, even if you don't think they are. Maybe they are. Maybe they'll teach you something. That's all I know. Everything I know is from trying, but also with hunting with really good hunters. And, I've learned a lot from a lot of people.
Let me ask you this. When you go to bed at night, what are you wearing? No, seriously. No, like, are there any gut feelings or like all right, there's a south wind and just a ton of rain. Are there any indicators that really point you to a non-successful day? Is there any day that you're like, man, I don't even want to, I want to cancel the hunt tomorrow because I know that nothing is going to work? Do you ever have anything like that? Or, when you have clients, do you ever tell them, boys, 90% of the time we don't kill birds on days like this? Is there anything like that? Or do you are you more of like 50-50? Is the worst case scenario 50 that you don't see stuff? You know what I mean?
I hate hunting with no wind. 100%. And no wind or frost, you might as well not even go out. You may kill a few birds, but it's not going to be, you potentially are going to ruin a really good hunt. And the nice thing about, how I have, my business ran is we do one hunt a day. So if the wind's going to be better in the evening, we know we're going to have no wind and frost. We go out in the afternoon. And even though it may be a shorter flight, your odds go up just immensely because no wind and frost is, going to kill you. And then I also hate hunting after a blizzard.
After a blizzard. Yeah, I was just going to say, because we had, the warm day and then we come in and then it's, 30 degrees and absolutely torrential downpour, wind switching on us from no wind. And like you said, you're coming off a blizzard where some of the roads out there are not even passable because it's, it's raining so hard and like the snow melted. So it just shows you how much water is in that area. And I was thinking to myself, like, when it was thundering and lightning and raining so hard, I was like, man, I would be so stressed out right now if I was Ben. And I don't know how you hunt. I don't know your fields or your situations out there, but I'm like, this has to be messing with the birds a little bit. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. It definitely stresses me out big time. But I think that's, it's not just me, it's my whole crew. Like, we really care about what we're doing and, we really want to kill birds. So it does stress us out. We think about it all the time. But then again, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't change the weather. We can't change the situation. We can just do our best, and it is what it is. You got to try and just remember that. Take a deep breath and be like, hey, there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to do our best, see what happens. Hopefully we, put some solid hunts together for this next group, and, it is what it is. But I think that's why we're good at what we do, is because we really care. Guys that don't care, they're just, in my opinion, taking your money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what were you saying about the blizzard? Is it because they ended up in fields that they really didn't want to be in just to get out of the weather, and then they move on looking for something, or what's your reason there?
Yeah, so typically in a blizzard, they're going to hit the first feed field that they can find, and if there's food in it, they're going to stay in that field. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's where they wanted to be. But they're going to hit that field, they're going to feed as hard as they can all day long. They're going to go back to water, and then when the sun comes out the next day, they're probably going to do something completely different. Just because it's such a, rain's a weather change, but when you're talking a really hard snow and an extreme wind like we had, we're like gusting up to 40 mile an hour. You're talking an extreme weather change when you go from snowing and sleeting at 40 mile an hour to sunshine and, 40 degrees or 35 degrees, whatever it was the next day. But obviously if they were in the field the day before and during the blizzard, they hit the same field, they're going to be in that field. But, that scout during the blizzard, I'm never confident in. And it's really hard to scout in the blizzard. I mean, you can't see.
Well, we couldn't see from the fog out there the one day. But so how does the blizzard compare to like a full moon and a strong north wind when birds can get up and get out? Do you wake up sometimes just, crossing your fingers, hoping that the birds are still there?
Not so much in Kansas. In Canada, that definitely worries me. Just because in Canada, there's always every week and a half or 2 weeks, there's a new wave coming in, there's birds leaving, you don't know when it's going to happen. I mean, you can kind of tell, but then there's days that you wouldn't think they'd leave and they'd be gone. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast up there because it's so far north. But in Kansas, in my area, we're really fortunate. I have a bunch of really big sand pits. We got a bunch of open water, and we just have a ton of feed. So typically, once a lot of our birds get here, they, for the most part, stick around. Obviously, you will see an influx of numbers, but for the most part, we always have birds here once they arrive. Very rarely do we, just lose a ton of birds. It's got to really, really lock up tight. So we're pretty fortunate in that aspect.
All right. So I'm going to ask you about, on this whole topic of stressful stuff, I'm going to ask you something about it's stressful to me, I think, when I hunt, and I know it's stressful to other people, and it has to do with calling the shot. Because, I mean, we were laying in that field on that second day, and we had just big knots of birds all over us, and I can't remember how many blinds we had, but we probably had, let's see here, 2, 4, like 6 or probably 8 or 9 blinds, I would guess, total, something like that. And you're down on one end, and then one of your guys, Corey, is beside me and kind of in the middle. And it's almost like 2 separate hunts because there was times when there was birds on our, down on your end that were in range, and there's nothing on the other end, and then vice versa, so it's like kind of battling that, when to call the shot. And I know a lot of guys, that are hunting around their local marshes and stuff on the weekends with their buddies, if it's their responsibility to call a shot, and for whatever reason, it doesn't go as well as the other guys in the blind would hope, they're automatically going to look at the dude calling a shot and be like, yo, what's going on over there? Kind of thing. So, as a guy who's got a bunch of people laying in the field with you and a bunch of birds all around you, like, do you feel that stress? And do you have any kind of like pointers that you could give to somebody, about calling the shot? Because you call it enough times, you're going to call some bad ones, or you're not going to call them when you should have, and things like that. That's going to happen. But do you got like any kind of general rules of thumb that can kind of help maybe navigate that situation a little bit?
Oh man. It doesn't really stress me out anymore like it is what it is. I will get upset, like if I miss a big spin, or, there are times where you have 4 or 6 in the hole that you got 50, or, with lessers, it could be 500 behind them. You got 6 to 8 guys in there. Why, screw the 4. Let's see what happens. Roll the dice. But every hunt's different. There'll be those hunts where, that 3 or 4 or 5 pack lands, and then the whole group comes, and then there'll be the hunts where the 3 or 4 will, pick up and leave, and the group sees them leave, and they bug out too. So you kind of got to just play the first couple flocks and see what they're going to do and adjust off of that. If they're only going to get to 40, well, you shoot them at 40 when they get to 40. If you're going to get singles and pairs to do it, and then the group's going to hang up at 60 or 70, you shoot singles and pairs. A lot of people are like, oh, you're educating that group of birds. Well, I honestly hate that. Some people say, oh, you're educating birds. I mean, it's different if you're hunting your own property and you can manage however many thousands of ducks that you have. You don't want to shoot into a huge flock of ducks and educate them. But when you're out hunting, basically, private land or public land that other people can have access to, in my opinion, if it's not me, it's going to be somebody else. So, let's party. let's kill them all.
I
If they're learning, they're learning.
I gotta be honest with
That's
you.
the way it is.
It cracked me up hearing you say that, because one of the funniest lines for me of that hunt is we're laying in the blinds and Dan gets all fired up because there's, he calls out a 4-pack straight out, right? And you're like, you got something against that 1,000-pack right behind him? And it's like, there's just so many birds coming. But I think, kind of to Dan's point, where we hunt, if you've got 4 coming in on the deck, you better get ready, because, we don't get flights like what we saw out there. I mean, for me, I'm terrified to shoot into big groups, because like our whole flight might only be 150 birds, like that feed, that might all that's be in there. I mean, 150 bird flock out there barely gets your attention unless they're like really begging you and they're like really looking like they're going to do it. It's just a different world for me. And I mean, we would shoot into flocks, dropping birds with birds, another groups of birds a couple hundred yards out that would still come in and finish too. Like it was really mind, opening, in that respect, where, I just felt like, well, if this group doesn't do it, like the next one will do it. I mean, back home, if the first group doesn't do it, we're like, oh man, there's something up with the decoy spread. Like who's not covered up good? Like, we're like looking at every little thing, because we know we only got a couple more flights, but like, it was really interesting to see just with the volume of birds that you've got out there. I think, Dan's brother Joe and I talked about it a bunch. Like there was never a discussion about like adjusting decoys or anything like that. And I don't know if there's a hunt that I've ever been on here on the East Coast where if a group doesn't finish, we're not like, we better make an adjustment here. I don't know. Something was right about that. You know what I mean?
100%. I mean, obviously there's adjustments made, but in my defense, like it was raining. We had a really good wind. It was like 20 mile an hour, maybe 25 gusting sometimes. Yeah. So in those situations with these geese, anytime you have any kind of moisture or snow, well, snow is moisture, but any kind of moisture is going to, affect their vision. And anytime you can get in a situation like that and be where they want to be, that's going to help you immensely if you can, withstand being in miserable conditions. So obviously that helped our situation a ton.
Yeah. I mean, that was again, it was probably the best hunt I've ever been on. And, it's just one of those hunts where it's like, yeah, some groups do it, some groups don't, but like, I never felt like any sort of panic from you or Corey. It's like, if you guys would have been like jumping up and be like, all right, we need to move like 60 dozen of these upwind further or something like that, I'd have been like, oh crap, like for real, type of thing. Like for us, it's like when I talk about adjustments, I'm like, all right, hold up. Let me go out here and move like this one goose, like a little bit out of the kill hold. Like they don't have a big enough pocket, it's like, I feel like that, the micromanaging of it is what kind of like separated what I'm used to seeing to vice, like what I experienced out there. It was just a completely different feel. And I just felt like, I'm like, these dudes know what they're doing. Like the fact that they're not out of their blinds moving around, like I'm still confident, as long as they're not complaining, like I know we're going to kill birds. It's just a different feel, right? I mean, it's the difference of a guy that gets to hunt, once a weekend to a guy that's hunting 6 days a week, right? It's just time spent in the field and kind of knowing the birds that you're hunting and, more in tune to how they act and how they respond to different conditions.
I was going to say, and I don't know, I'm pretending like there's no dumb questions, but I asked this to Josh when we were out there and I was like, with the amount of birds that were in the air and watching us pick up, do you think that picking up their buddies or family members that are on the ground, being the decoys, do you think that educates birds at all?
Oh, man. Honestly, I've never really thought about it until you just asked that question.
And they said, he said, it's not like a life-changing moment like being shot at and having shotgun just blasting in your face and, getting them dropped out of the sky right next to you. And I'm like, yeah, but still, like, how small is their brain to realize, hey, there's humans down there and they're moving all of our friends and putting them in a pile right now, and putting them on a four-wheeler and taking them out of the field. maybe we should be a little more cautious about this area. I don't know. And that's what, and the only thing that made me think of it is because there were so many birds in the air. I know Vandy Camp's listening to this and he was kind of upset, and he actually, I don't want to say upset, but he was still excited. Like, there's birds. Why are we picking up? And he actually set up posts about 300 yards out near the tree line to see if he could pass shoot some geese. But anyway, it was just something that crossed my mind, and I was like, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. There's nothing you can do about it either way, but
you really thought in depth about that.
No, I asked it in the truck, and that was their, they said it wasn't a dramatic enough event to change what they would actually be doing.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think you're giving a little credit, a little too much credit.
I mean, as soon as they go land with the live birds and start feeding, I'll assume they just kind of forget about it. Well, obviously, you just hunted that field anyway, so it's not like they're gonna, they shouldn't come back to that field for a while. So, obviously they know that. So,
Right. Yeah, I just think it's a different experience to them being shot at 20 yards with shotgun blasts, vice flying over and seeing, humans moving. I mean, I would equate it to like, hey, you're in the car and you drive by an alley that looks kind of shady. You're going to be like, nah, I'm probably going to stay out of there. That's a different experience than having someone, put a gun in your face and, hold you up kind of deal. That's probably an oversimplification of the scenario, but to me, it sort of would feel like, I mean, they fly literally like hundreds of thousands of miles and see all kinds of people and vehicles and things all over the place. Like, they would fly themselves to death if they were scared of everything that they saw on the ground. So I don't know what meets the threshold. But who knows? But I think,
good point, Josh.
So let's
you guys need a new segment. Random questions from Dan.
I think we get enough randomness from Dan. All right, so let's talk about our third hunt, because you kind of you presented us with two really good options on the last day, as far as we could have targeted geese, or we could have targeted ducks, and for Dan and I, we just don't get a ton of opportunity to shoot ducks, so that's what we decided to go after. And we were back in the A-frames, and this was a little bit different scenario because we had a little more sun than we had the first day. We had some wind. It was, I believe it was a little bit colder even on that day. And, it was, I can't remember how many we ended up shooting, but we shot a bunch of, mallard and some widgeon. And, I mean, it was just like one of those days where, I know a lot of guys get hung up on, like, okay, I read in DU magazine that like, this is how you set up on this hole. But like for us, we were looking right in the sun because that's the way we had to hunt it, based on the wind and the thing. But like, it did not appear to impact the ducks finishing at all. I mean, they were just doing it dirty, like regardless of that fact. And, I'm curious as to your opinion on this, Ben, because there's a lot of factors that go into choosing how you set up on a hole and where you set it up and all that kind of stuff. And, ideally we would have the sun at our backs, but like we didn't, and we still hunted the spot and had success. So like, how do you gauge that? Like when you say, okay, yeah, per the book, like we shouldn't do it this way, but I've seen this, scouted this enough to know that we need to be here and that this is a risk or whatever that we need to take to be able to be successful here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was kind of partly cloudy. I was hoping the clouds would stick around a little bit longer, but when the sun came out, the ducks really gave it up well. Honestly, if it didn't affect everyone's shooting and it didn't bother people to look into the sun, I honestly think you want to look into the sun every single time. Reason being is I feel like the birds are that much more confident when they have the sun at their back. That's when they can see everything. So then if your hide is legit, and, your decoys look good and the spinners look good, they're definitely going to commit at that point. Because they're confident they can see. I think a lot of times when they can't see, if they want to be there, they're going to do it. But I don't know. I've always thought that to myself. I mean, if I were going to go do something, like if I were a duck, I would want to have the sun at my back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, fair point. Yeah, I mean the same things that we want to utilize to our advantage to make ourselves more successful are the same concepts that they want to utilize as well. So
yep. So
I hadn't thought of that. I mean that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just think it gives some confidence, and then obviously, kind of like you were saying, how I set the spread is, all of us were right-handed shooters, so I always, if you notice, tried to let the ducks get. So I like to be on the left end of the blind. So if the ducks get to me, that means everybody else that's right-handed can just turn their body to the left just a little bit, because that's how you're naturally going to shoot. A right-handed shooter wants to swing left, and then you're not even looking into the sun, especially on your first or second shot. Now your potentially second or third shot could be, towards the sun just because of the way the ducks are getting out. But if you try and let them get farther to the left, for right-handed shooters, it's way more comfortable to, point somewhat left. Obviously, there's, you don't want to be too extreme with how you set your angles, but there's definitely ways you can work with having the sun in your eyes.
Yeah, I never thought of that either, and that's a good point. And now looking back on that, really, if the birds didn't want to be there or if they didn't like something, they were gone. Like they didn't play around too much, except there was one pair that I think you called at for a good 5 to 7 minutes, and then you called the shot for yourself because you were frustrated with them at the end there, but he might have yelled at him too. But those ones, but for the most part, if they didn't want to commit, they weren't committing, and if they liked it, they were coming. So that's a great point. And every time that you went out to work with Otis or pick up a duck or a decoy or something, every time that you turned around, you were looking and saying, "Close that up, close this up, move this, and add more here," whatever it was. So, your job never ends. As much as we were laughing in the blind and all that, you were on top of it. So, I appreciate your effort that you put in out there for us.
Not a problem. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do anyway. I want everybody to have a fantastic time and shoot birds. And, if we're not shooting birds, I still want, to get to know people, laugh, have a good time. Hunting should be enjoyable whether you're pulling the trigger or not. And if it's not, then you're doing it for the wrong reason. And that's just kind of how I tell my guys to run it. We really enjoy it, and doing what we do, it's honestly amazing if you stop and think about it. Just even our relationship we've built, I stop and think about all the people that I've, met through guiding. My partner in Canada, I guided him 6 years ago, and now he's my business partner with my Canada operation. I listened to one of your guys' podcasts and reached out, and, you guys put me on the show, and now you guys came out, and we're pretty good friends. So, hunting is, I think, a really special thing, especially for, just people, and especially for families. It's just, I think that's the main reason we do it. So.
Yeah. And I think too, hunting, I could have not pulled the trigger my entire time in Kansas, and I would have had a great time, and it would have been worth the trip just to get out there and hang out with, the guys, and, see old friends and meet new friends, and, all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, a lot of people, and myself included, when I went on my first guided hunt, I was a little bit intimidated because, it's like, guys that are out there doing this every day, they know what they're doing. They probably have expectations, and it's like, hey, well, what if I don't shoot good enough and all this kind of stuff? Like, I'll say, at no point, like when we were out there, like, and when we would meet with all the, all your guys would come together, we'd have lunch and stuff. Like, it just felt like I was having lunch with some, with my buddies that I could have been back, back home with. It was good camaraderie, good, good times cutting up, just having fun. And, that says a lot about the guys that you have and just, the way that you run the business out there. So I enjoyed my time. I would definitely encourage anybody that is looking for a hunt, like for me, literally, and I know other guys in this hunt would echo this. If you're looking for a hunt of a lifetime, more birds in the air than if you're in the Atlantic Flyway, it's more birds than you've ever seen. I promise you. Definitely Kansas is a great place to go. And, Ben's as good as it gets out there. And, I'm excited to get back out, man. I can tell you, I want to get back out and I want to hunt big groups of birds. I'm tired. I don't want to hunt I don't want to hunt flocks of 60 honkers anymore. I want to hunt flocks of, 6,000 birds.
So Ben, last question for you here. Did you expect anyone to be a better shot than what they were?
There was only one of us in the group that came that far to miss, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, no, actually, you guys did pretty well. For not being everyday hunters, I'm fairly impressed. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
it can get really rough sometimes. Not that you guys didn't have some rough goes, because you did. I think there's plenty of razzing going on. When someone was missing, like Peeler on the far right, hunting geese, but that's another story. So make sure you ask him about that. But no, you guys did a really good job, to be honest with you.
I tell you, that first morning when you called me a number on that one and I missed on the first shot and I killed it on the second, holy smokes, man. You would have thought that I had just whiffed 3 times on that bird and whatever. And thank God Alex was there, because he was the only one that had my back in any degree. Everyone else was just...
That was nothing. Think if you would have missed the bird.
I know. I mean, my God.
You might as well just pack your stuff.
I probably would have. I probably would have at that point. But, but no, it's all in good fun. And, Dan just continued to remind me how he feels he's the best shot ever known to man, pretty much every hunt. So
I did not say that.
Oh, okay.
I
don't know. Every hunt, Dan.
I mean, I will say straight out of the gate, the widgeons, they just couldn't handle what I was putting down. But
Dan's like, oh, first hunt 2 days in a row, or first shot 2 days in a row, 1 shot, 1 dead widgeon. And then I think on day 3,
he didn't kill a speck though, did he?
No, because I think there's a trigger being pulled when someone at the same time was calling the shot. So we'll see.
Yeah. Hey, I shot my lane. You weren't even supposed to point at that bird. Far left bird, far left guy. You should have been shooting one of those lessers that flew away. Josh must have been pointed at those ones.
Yeah, I was busy.
Like,
I was busy missing those.
There's my first spec ever that I get to shoot at, and then there's
right.
There's a boom, take him. Yeah. And he just folds right in front of me.
Like that. The first flock, you killed 2 of the birds that I was trying to shoot at and beat me to the punch. So that next go around, I was like, okay, let's race. Come on, Gingerbeard, let's race. And so yeah, you guys need to make sure you shoot some clays before Saskatchewan 2019, man.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong.
Language.
And there was so much giggling going on in the blind from Dan, similar to what was just happening a moment ago.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of giggling.
It would be boring. He called me Gingerbeard. Gingerbeard man.
All right.
There were a lot of names called that 3 days, but
Indeed. Well, anyway, we had a blast out there. We appreciate you having us, and again, encourage anybody that's looking for an awesome hunt. Look up Ben and his outfit out there, and get you some of that. Yeah, man. You say Saskatchewan 2019. It's got me all up in my feels right now. I've never hunted
Ben,
Canada.
What'd you say?
I said I've never hunted Canada before.
Oh yeah, same here. But Ben, these last couple of days, what do you have, like 15-man duck limits each day? About?
Yeah, we've been wrecking them. We've been just wrecking the ducks, and we're going to wreck them tomorrow. We're probably going to wreck them Saturday too. So, looking forward to it. It's been really, really good. Guys are doing a fantastic job with scouting and getting on properties, and we're building some really good relationship with landowners and farmers, and looking forward to the rest of the season, man.
Just do me a favor. When you're shooting limits of mallards tomorrow and Saturday and every other day that you mentioned, just remember that us here in the Atlantic Flyway, we're going to be shooting 2 mallards a day next season while you're shooting like 100 mallards a day. So that's exciting for us.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it affects, all those guides and outfitters out there.
Yeah.
Especially with the goose number dropping.
Yep. That's the big killer there.
I don't know that. I mean, I got to be honest with you guys. I don't know that I would go out for one goose.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's two now, and that's not a lot, right? And yeah, it'll be just interesting to see if guys shift their focus and try to chase snows more or what they try to do. But I feel for them because not only is the limit going down, but the season length is getting cut down too. So just their huntable days are going to be limited as well. So
what we're saying is, next year, if you want to come out to Pennsylvania or Virginia and get on a big feed, like I showed you on Snapchat the other day, you're more than welcome to.
What was it, 12 honkers, 13?
Hey.
There's like 60-some in there.
All banded, though. All banded.
Hey, I already told you guys. You guys guarantee me a black duck, I'm there.
Ooh, we might be able to do that.
Can't guarantee that. It could probably get you a band, though.
That's the problem. You said might be able to do that. That's not a guarantee.
Yeah. Nothing's guaranteed.
All right. We're going to wrap this up. Ben, thank you again for your time, brother. Enjoyed spending some time out there with you. Looking forward to doing it again. Encourage everybody to check out Ben Kansas Outdoors. Dan, you got one last thing here before we let Ben go?
No, man. Thanks again. It really was a blast. And you got a bunch of good guys working for you and Kayla too. It was just a pleasure to hang out with you and hunt with you after all this time talking about it.
Sounds great, boys. I appreciate you guys coming out and everything you do for Big Kansas as well. And hopefully we can do it again soon.
All right. Thanks again to Ben for spending some time with us and reliving the hunt a little bit and talking some tips and strategies. And make sure that if you're interested in taking a look at a pair of rec specs, head over there, check them out. Use the discount code HP Outdoors, get yourself 15% off. And pretty cool. We're excited about bringing that opportunity to you guys.
Yeah, I was really, really impressed with that product and just how much it did not get in the way of the dog. I always thought that something would just kind of hinder the performance, and it really didn't. So that was cool to see. And they just look cool, Yeah. So that was awesome. But yeah, we said it before, but Ben, great place out there. Those guys, if there is a crew that works harder than them out there, then kudos to them, because these guys, they put in the time and it is a very professional, very well done job that the experience is amazing. So can't say enough about it. And I'm sure we're either going there or up to Canada with them here coming next year. So
yeah. And a point of clarification on that discount code, it does not appear to be case sensitive. So I believe you can just key in HP Outdoors and get your discount from my testing of it on the website. So we'll put that up on the HP discount page. So if you want to head over there and check it out, make sure to take advantage. So what do you got? What do you got season wise back home there, Dan? You got any hunts planned? You got something going on? What's up?
Well, this is Thursday, so Saturday, by the time this comes out, our season will be out, and then it comes back in like the 27th through the 1st, I think, which the 27th I'll be out of state in Oklahoma hunting, and then I know the wife works on New Year's, so I don't know. My PA, unless I hunt this weekend, my PA season might be done for ducks.
Mm. Yeah, we're out of season right now, currently here in Virginia, and I think we come back in either the 15th or the 22nd. I want to say it's the 15th, but I'm not 100% sure on that yet. But I'm shifting gears into, we're getting close to baby watch time. I'm going to try to get out here a couple times in this last split when it comes back in before the baby comes, but she's essentially full term now, so the baby could come at any point. So just I'm trying to get everything buttoned up this around the house that needs to be done. Still coaching basketball. So it's like tons of crap going on the weekends, but, planning to get a few hunts in. Hopefully some of these weather systems that are going on will jumpstart some downward movement on these birds. I haven't seen a ton around lately. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but, having been in Kansas, any number of birds that I see here is going to be underwhelming. That's for certain. But
yeah,
we'll take what we can get, and we'll get what we can take.
Old Toe Tap was saying he had some birds for tomorrow, which would be Friday, and just coming off a trip where I took a couple of days off last week. It's tough here, but hopefully he gets on it.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll hear from him.
Old Toe Tap. Yeah, he's been getting after him. It's cool to see. What else you got, man? You got one more thing here before we wrap this puppy up?
Oh,
such a deep, long exhale.
Well, I'm looking around. I have just headsets and mics and cameras and drones and just surrounded by stuff that's getting ready to get packed back up. So
yeah, bruh.
I don't know. Just crazy.
Yeah.
I cannot believe the amount of birds that were out there, and I don't know. It's so much fun, and it was fun as the longest trip that we've been on together as far as travel and everything goes. But
yeah, for sure.
Oh man, it's just that right there is what life is about. Making memories with friends, and that trip's something I'll never forget. So
no limit on memories, bro.
No limit on memories. That's pretty neat.
It is neat.
So
yeah.
Anyway,
I'm
good.
All right. Well, before
squeaky chair.
I was going to say, what was that noise? So this is different. You're in the house. You're not out in like the freezing garage.
Yeah.
So we're kind of weird.
Yeah. I'm just surprised, the Wi-Fi is working on FaceTime audio for our connection, and it's going pretty well. It's warm. I don't have all my Sitka hunting gear on to record a podcast, so I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about it for you. I haven't heard any little kids getting up with nightmares or anything.
No, that was before we started.
Yeah. Yeah, well, good. Sounds like they're all squared away. Let's go ahead and square this show away. But before we do that, take a minute real quick just again to thank Quack Rack, White Rock Decoys, Lucky Duck, 737 Duck and Goose Calls, Gunner Kennels, Onyx Hunt, Camp Chef, Black Rifle Coffee Company, and Big Al Silhouette Decoys. Again, we say it every week, but please support the companies that support what we do. All right, that's going to do it for episode 112. Hopefully you enjoyed our discussion with Ben Webster at Big Kansas Outdoors and the opportunity to go a little bit deep dive into some of the hunts that we had and the tips and techniques that we were using out there in Kansas. If you're new to the show, head over to iTunes, check out all the past episodes, and leave us 5-star rating and review. Help like-minded hunters just like yourself find the program. We're nearing the holiday season. Hopefully you guys are getting some time off work and getting some time in the field. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. But until then, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.